In the outgoing week, national leader of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, made it clear to everyone that he did not have any son old enough to declare for the presidency of Nigeria. This clarification came shortly after Vice President Yemi Osinbajo threw his hat in the ring to join the race for next year's presidential election. Many people, especially here in the southwestern part of the country, had hurriedly made the connection between the two men and established political associates. The major question being why both of them will be going for the same position. In the understanding of many, Tinubu brought Osinbajo to political relevance, and she will be seen to be conceding to his godfather. Can they find a resolution before the presidential convention? And where does this situation leave their adherents and supporters regarding the way forward? Well, joining us now to have a chat around this and a lot more is DAYO ALEBIOSU, a ranking member of APC and aspirant for a seat in the Federal House of Representatives. Good morning, Mr. ALEBIOSU.
Good morning.
Good to have you join us in the studio.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right. I mean, you're an honorable lawmaker. Is that correct? You're still in the House and, of course, a member of the APC. Let's start with your aspiration. This will be the second or third time that
I've had two runs.
You've had two.
From 2007 to 2015.
To 2015.
Correct.
Now you want to return. What did you forget in Abuja that you're going back for?
Well, it's not about what you've forgotten. Policy making is not, contrary to what we think about it, it's not what you joke around with. This is what determines the direction in which a country heads. That's why whenever there's a coup d'etat, the first thing that happens is the only arm of government to be dissolved is usually the legislature. So that's the backbone of any democracy. And of course, you need a lot of experience when you're doing that. And that's why most offices, or certain offices, or should I say delicate offices, usually would rather have ranking members, experienced members, occupy those seats in order to drive the legislature.
Okay.
You know.
So why are you running again for the third time? I mean, what's the deal to your constituents this time around? What are you promising them? What will you be wanting to do differently as a federal lawmaker? There's
a lot. For every administration, there's a defining crisis. What happened with during the what we thought was a lot during the Yar'Adua regime was different from what happened during the Goodluck Jonathan regime, and it's different from what's going on right now. And I mean, I'll give you an example. When you go to a hospital to get treated, who would you rather treat you? A doctor with 2 years experience or a doctor with 30 years experience who's seen it all? I humbly would say that Nigeria has been good to me. I would say that I have gotten enough training. I'm one of the best legislators out of this country today. I just love policy making. I understand the rudiments and the rudimentary requirements of lawmaking. Oversight, the last 10 years I've continued to sharpen myself. I mean, they say iron sharpens iron, not wood doesn't sharpen iron. So I've had to, with the goings-ons, I've had to, I've been on training over the last 10 years in the area of leadership. Though I'm an architect, but I've had to go on for a degree in leadership and management. Today, I'm actually turning in my papers, my project for one of the two postgraduate programs I'm doing at the moment, which is in leadership and management, and the other at Warwick in strategic leadership. So we're coming back with a wealth of experience. As you can see, you have the likes of when you look at those who are actually pilots in the House right now, you see that they're the likes of Femi Gbajabiamila, who's done about 5 terms.
Yes.
James Faleke has done 3 terms.
That's right.
Adodogwa, if I remember very well, has been there since '93, if I remember clearly. So that's experience put to bear.
I know, and for me, just one. I know that's what obtains elsewhere. You know, you grow with the legislature and things like that. But here, people tend to think, why don't you give other people, their chance? There was even a time within the APC fold, I suppose when it was ACN then, that there was an unwritten rule or understanding that after 2 terms, ideally in a position, just like for governors or deputies, that they encourage others within the party, to aspire, so that it won't, you won't be a lawmaker in perpetuity. Do you think that that's still?
To be honest with you, it's not something in our constitution. It was a mindset. It was nothing more than a mindset, and people are moving away from that mindset right now. I remember for a long time, people have been pretty much upset with the legislature. Every time there's an issue in the country, who do you have a go at? The legislature. They've called it all sorts of names, toothpick legislature, rubber stamp legislature. But when you're able to hold your own, don't forget one of the major things you require, the requirements of a legislator is to oversight, to make laws, legislate oversight. Right. How do you oversight somebody like Fashola if you're not quite together up there? Mm-hmm. So, and you need knowledge, you need experience. For you to be elected as a legislator in any sane climb, you need to be a known name. Mm-hmm. You need to be a person of good character whose character is well understood and well known. You need to be known to be able to deliver. Your level of intellect and intelligence must be understood, and your motive. That's why if you feel any kind of belly cramp right now, and I decide, okay, lie down, I'm a doctor, let me help you. The reason you would submit to me is because you already have an idea that, well, I'm well trained, and you appreciate my motive, knowing that I don't want to kill you, but I want to save you. When you have those qualities, people would follow you once they believe in you,
All righty. Well, if we look at the current relationship now between the legislature and the executive arm of government in this country, some would say that the relationship is a bit too close for comfort. Do you agree or disagree with that?
You can't. You need. It's always meant to be a sweet and sour kind of relationship. Sometimes you need to be tough. It's not about this is your party, but there's something called. You shouldn't be a rubber stamp legislature, because there's something called There's something called intelligent disobedience, where you're able to say, you know what? Yes, this is right. Like guide dogs, they're trained for the first year and a half, or the first year and a half to obey orders, and then they're trained for another 6 months to disobey orders. Why is that? So that when they're giving orders and they know that this order can endanger their life and the life of the person they're leading, it's trained to disobey intelligently. Now, similarly, this applies in the legislature. You're meant to have a good relationship, but you should also be able to say, listen, it's important we look at things dispassionately and look at things, from this point of view. What would be the backlash and things like that? And there are times when, in order to move forward, you would need to have a fantastic relationship. So you can't go in always with guns blazing. It has to be on a very good mutual understanding of particular things you're working on. So it should always be a sweet and sour kind of relationship, I'd say.
I know that the guidelines are not formally out from the party, but of course they should be out soon, and then the expression of interest and forms will be sold. Of course, you pick your own. Yes. How ready are you for the primaries if it turns out that there will be a kind of primary, not consensus, like we witnessed during the party convention, either direct or indirect? How prepared are you to face the incumbent, I believe?
Well, remember the incumbent took over from me. And I respect the fact that he's running. It's his constitutional right, it's my constitutional right. I'm well prepared. I understand there's politicking and there's your ability to deliver as well. I'm not a newcomer here. I would say I'm a no-name. And of course, I humbly say that I've had a fantastic relationship with my constituents. It's still on record that I've had the highest number of votes at a particular time as a member of reps in the country. Coach Ofe has always been supportive of me, and that's why I bleed blood for Coach Ofe, if I can say so. It's either the three ways that is required. You have, like you said, consensus, you have direct primaries, you have the indirect. Whichever way we go, I'd be an unserious person to say I haven't been prepared for this or that I didn't. For as long as I always have the support of the people, that's what matters the most. And I've had a clean record. I've had no qualms with anybody. I've been able to deliver on things that we've done. We're able to reference some of the things we did. I mean, things like the Dana air crash. I fought for the compensation when I was in the House. Prior to that time, there was Bellevue crash. There was Sosoliso. I wasn't in the House then, but when I got into the House, I was able to activate the Montreal Convention to make sure that everybody was compensated to the tune of $171,000 per person, according to the Montreal Convention. When I saw the list of people who died on the data, I don't have the full data, it's been a while, of those who died on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway that runs through my constituency. I moved the motion to say, listen, you know what? We need to really look at the concession agreement and the lives of our people come first. I've always, right from the first day, I never left them. I always wanted to know what it was they wanted, and we were able to deliver on that.
What happened to your bill on the caffeinated energy drinks in 2013?
It wasn't a bill, it was a motion.
It was a motion.
And a concern for me then was that if you look at the branding of most caffeinated energy drinks and so on, you'd see that they were targeted at young people. That's right. And when we looked at the lifestyle of young people at that time, we saw that some would mix, it was already a mix of caffeine, taurine, and a few other things. So you had, in alcohol, there's some level of depressant you add together. So you're sending mixed signals to your body, whether to sleep or to stay awake. It was dangerous, it had an effect. And of course, you would see that the war, it was quite a big thing then. You'd see that the presence is not like it used to be anymore. So we were able to achieve that amongst many other things.
It's still bad out there. I mean, it's like we're a dumping ground for such drinks these days. I mean, everywhere, different brands coming out.
No doubt about it, but look at the research. I mean, do a thorough research and look at how it is now and how it was then. I would say we were able to clean ours down to about 30% or thereabout. However, this is something that you would need, we started, it's like a marathon. We started that race and it was something that had to be, followed up on.
You, in the very early parts of this conversation, you talked about how you love policy making and how it's something that runs through your blood.
Correct.
I mean, that was a great example of talking about something that you are passionate about, and the processes aren't always simple. But when we look at the representation of women, for example, or how laws affect them, Nigeria seems to lag behind expectations in many arenas. You'll be well aware about how, I want to use the correct term, I don't know if they're bills or motions, how they weren't successful in their first attempt. And that is quite disappointing as a woman, as a Nigerian, because you'd like to think that we're progressing in so many other areas. The adequate representation of women and protection of women shouldn't be an area that we lag behind in. What are your thoughts as it pertains to gender equality? And should you resume your seat, is that something that you'd be pushing for?
I would tell you something quickly. First of all, I'm a father of only girls.
A girl dad.
Yes, I have a fantastic relationship with them. And I have passed on the training my mother passed on to me. My mother taught me to not respect women or men, but to respect people. Now, you can't say, when we focus on, even the Constitution guarantees a lot of this. And the training I give my children is that they must always have something to negotiate with intellectually. This is the same thing that I have always stood for. Culture has a serious role to play. So even when there is, we have to, even though it's a democracy, but we have to adapt to our style of democracy. Where did democracy come from? The West. When you look at the West, in the UK, for example, they were only able to as of their last election was when they were able to hit 25%. There are 3 countries in the world today that have been able to hit the equality mark, and that they are the United Arab Emirates, Cuba, and Rwanda. They're the only 3 countries in the world. Now, we have 54 countries in Africa alone, and we've only been able to point to 1 country. So we see that from that, when you look at that data, you would see that culture has a serious role to play. So the first thing we need to do, you can have all the laws and not have it happen. But the first thing we need to do is to have people think out of the box, look at things differently, have some selling points to put out there so that it's something that's embraced. Otherwise, there's no law, there are few laws they have abroad that we don't have here. But the issue is, how do we implement them? That's where this lies.
Your party has managed to have its convention done. The NWC has emerged and everything. But then we're in an intensely heated up political season now, because of the primaries that are coming. You heard what we read in our intro about the, what's going on between Ashweju and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, vying, apparently haven't declared for the same position. I know that you come from a very politically rich pedigree, your dad and everything. But in this matter, on whose mandate are you standing, and how do you see the fact that 2 of Southwest's best are now, in competition for the same ticket?
Let me say something that, first of all, I'm happy that we are a party rich in experience. We're a party rich in people. I mean, we should applaud our party for having such intellectuals within our party. It's a different case when, isn't there any other person? Must it be just one person? We're rich, there's so many others. But we also need to understand that there's the play of politics here. And it's important that we get our act together. You'd find out that those who are actually hitting up the polity aren't the candidates, but there are people who stand to benefit from hitting up the polity. There's something called simulated chaos, which is intentional, but I like a situation where I've gotten to understand that even in a situation of chaos, there are opportunities of, getting things better. And one thing I know is at the end of the day, the parties would come together, the Southwest would come together and field somebody. Because if you look at politics, and the North is pretty, when you look at the line from, this is what I've seen, not my thought now, it's just what I've seen. You would find out that the northern part is, they're quite together, they're an entity. But in the South, we're divided into 3, the South-South, the Southeast, the Southwest. And what something just tells me, my thought tells me, is that the Southwest needs to get its act together, because you see that there's just one person who's showing intentions from the South-South. So I think it's a kind of political warning to say, guys, get your act together. That is the Southwest I'm referring to. So we have a lot to put out there to sell, and at the end of the day, most of the time, we saw how the convention played out. What if at the end of the day, there's a consensus to say, you know what? Consensus is usually put to play where you want afterwards everybody to still be happy. So I think consensus, after the consensus of Abuja, we haven't heard much, we haven't heard or seen any or much bitterness thereafter. So if it's a tool that will eradicate or eliminate bitterness, it's something that I'm actually, I'm happy to be a part of. You're reluctant to to want to queue behind anybody at this point? No. It's not a case of being reluctant to want to queue about anybody. At the end of the day, it's not even going to be my decision. It's going to be the decision of that hierarchy of the party.
That's right.
So that's where I'm trying to hang it for us to have a good understanding of.
All right.
As always, a pleasure. Did I say as always? This is my first time meeting you. What a pleasurable conversation.
Yeah.
Was DAYO ALEBIOSU. Thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.